Hey, what's up, Faithbox? Hope you guys are doing great this morning. I wanted to jump in on today's devotional because we have a quote, an inspirational quote, but I wanted to take a moment to read it and then explain it and share some thoughts on it. So it comes from A.W. Pink, and A.W. Pink is or was, I should say, a pastor, a theologian, a writer. He was born in England, moved over to the States in the early part of the 1900s, and pastored a couple different churches around the country, and then died in the mid-centuries, in the 1950s. But his writings and his work actually kind of took off after his death. And so he put a lot of work into studying God, studying about who God is, understanding theology, the grace of God, the sovereignty of God. And then he wrote those things down, but then it was only after he died that people really started to grasp and take hold of his writings. So he's very influential in a lot of pastors' lives and a lot of theologians' lives. And so we have a great quote from him today. It's a little bit deep, so I'm going to take a moment to kind of break it down. But it says this, day 21, just as the sinner's despair of any hope from himself is the first prerequisite of a sound conversion, so the loss of all confidence in himself is the first essential in the believer's growth in grace. So I'm going to break it up in kind of two parts because he kind of writes this in two parts. There's the first half. Just as the sinner's despair of any hope from himself is the first prerequisite of a sound conversion. Basically what he's saying is this, that before a person becomes a believer, they have to relinquish any sort of hope that they can save themselves. That if their entry to heaven is in any way, shape, or form based on their ability or in the belief or the hope that they can do it on their own, then they're not really going to get converted. They're not really going to get saved, because salvation requires a recognition that only Jesus could do this, that only Jesus could pay the price, that only Jesus could save us, and that only that he is our only hope. And so just as the sinner's despair of any hope is the first prerequisite for conversion, then he continues into the second part. So the loss of all confidence in himself is the first essential in the believer's growth in grace. And so this latter part kind of refers to the fact that you have to kind of lose confidence in yourself in order to really not experience grace, but to grow in grace. You know, we talked about that earlier this month about growing in grace and how God is giving to us immeasurably more grace, and that we can take steps to grow in grace as a follower of Jesus. But part of our ability to grow in grace is dependent upon us losing any sort of confidence, because as we've said throughout this entire month, grace is not anything we've earned. Grace is not anything that we've achieved. It's not anything that we've accomplished. It's not anything that we've been capable of doing on our own. It's completely and entirely from God and based on God. And so as we receive grace, we've got to continue to walk in that kind of manner of receiving. You see, grace should not produce more confidence or arrogance or pride. As we grow in grace, we shouldn't get more arrogant. We shouldn't get more confident. We shouldn't get more prideful that, oh, look at me, or look what I've done, or look what I've experienced. That's not the way grace works. In fact, it works the opposite way, that in order to continue to grow in grace, we have to lose more confidence. We have to lose more arrogance. We have to lose more of our pride and strip ourselves from those things in order to be beneficiaries of grace and in order to grow in grace. And I think sometimes that's the challenge, right? Because when we struggle to extend grace to other people, it comes from a place of pride. It comes from a place of self-recognition, or a place of our self-worth, and saying, well, you know, I deserve better than what they did or the way they treated me, so I'm going to hold back from them. But in order to grow in grace, we have to strip ourselves of that kind of attitude and that posture, which is what makes it, honestly, really difficult at times. And so I want to encourage you today on this Monday to grow in grace, but to do so by letting go of any sort of confidence of your ability, any sort of confidence of what you've achieved, any sort of confidence of what you've accomplished or what you've been blessed with. Instead, grab hold of grace and say, God, I recognize that everything in my life, everything good in my life is a gift from you. And the more I can recognize that, the more I can embrace that, the more I can engage that, then the better I will be, or the better equipped I will be to walk in grace and to grow in grace. Hopefully that encourages you today. I hope you have a great Monday, a great start to your week, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.